Hello creeps! Andy here. Today we're going to do reading wrap up for June. And the first one is Maggies Grave. This is by David Sodergren. And this guy was an interesting ride. So this was actually a gift from my friend. I think it was for my birthday. And I read it, and at the beginning I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is going to be for me, because it's about this small town. I believe it's, yeah, in Scotland. And there's lore in the town about this witch who once lived and the town murdered her. And so her cabin is up on the hill and her gravesite. And one night, this dumb, annoying American comes in and to the little bar that all the kids are hanging out at, and she insists that they take her to Maggie's grave to see where this witch died. So reading this book, I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to be for me. I'm not a big witch, supernatural kind of stuff. I mean, every once in a while a book surprises me. And this book surprised me. One, extremely gory. Extremely gory. Very gory. And two, the way that the witch comes back it's just wild. It really doesn't give you too much information on the back, so I can't really say exactly what happened, but there were a lot of things that surprised me in this book. It just says, but sometimes the dead don't stay buried. Okay, well, yeah, then yeah, the way that the witch comes back is absolutely insane. Yeah, super bloody, super gory, super interesting. I thought that this was a good book. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I like books that surprise me, and although I figured some stuff out in the book, the ending was killer. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So I'll definitely be picking up more of his work. Let me know if you guys have read anything from him that isn't supernatural. Or if it's all supernatural, then I'll just know that going in. But I don't know, let me know what your favorite books are by him, because that's the first one that I read. The next book that I read was The Slitz by Dennis Cooper. I'm not going to go too into this one because I've talked about this one so many times. I made a whole video on it. But it's about this escort named Brad who is being reviewed on this escort service. And because of the weird things that are surrounding him, the stuff that people are writing, more and more people get interested in this Brad character. He's extremely handsome. He is either of age or potentially underage. He's a little off and weird and is fearful that people are trying to hurt him. And it's just an awesome book. It really is. Watch the whole video on this if you want more information, but it's just told through message boards and emails and faxes, and it's just such a unique experience. Very messed up, very disturbing, very, very messed up, but a fantastic read. Honestly, one of my favorite books that I've read, but I'm sure you guys have seen me talk about that. Probably same with this one. This is Ronald Malfi's Smalltown Horror. This one I read this month. It came out this month, or in June. And this guy is about a man who goes back to a small town that he grew up in. He swore he would never return, but he comes back to help his friend whose wife has gone missing. He's a lawyer, and so he wants to help out. And then when he gets back into the town, stuff from his childhood starts popping up again. They also feel like there's this presence watching them, so they don't know, and we don't know if it's like a supernatural story or not. There's some really creepy scenes in here, some really, really cool things. The writing, I forgot to tell you guys in the last video, the writing is fantastic. It is so beautiful. It's awesome. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna read you the first paragraph. I posted this on my Instagram when I was reading this book, so if you follow me there, you will have already seen it. But listen to this. It says, maybe this is a ghost story. If it is, then I am both the haunter and the haunted. Do I still hear the echo of the night repeated forever until it bursts across the fragment of space? Do I still sense all of those dark mementos nestled tight and unmovable in the blackened corners of my memories, stirring from time to time just to let me know they are never going away? I mean, come on. What a wonderful start to a book. So highly recommend this guy. I've talked about that a lot too, so I'm going to move on from there. The next one I read was Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. Now, he writes a lot of erotic fiction. I've read one on here before, and they're really funny stories. They're well written. They're cute little fun erotic tales. But this, I believe, is his first quote-unquote serious novel, you know? And this one, I gotta be honest, I have mixed feelings about. Okay, so one, let me just read this to make sure I don't give anything away. See, this is going to be hard to talk about because the synopsis doesn't really give too much away. It just says that there's a God-fearing community, and nestled high up in the mountains is this Camp Damascus, which is a gay conversion camp. And our main character notices some weird things that are going on. Like in the beginning of the book, she's spitting out these flies and this weird stuff is happening. And I don't want to give too much away, but I'll just say this. I don't like really supernatural stuff, and the stuff in the book is just not a typical book that I would read. It wouldn't be a typical book for me. However, the sentiments behind the book, like there are some pretty heartbreaking comments, like it's difficult to find that your parents' love is conditional, these overly religious parents, and stuff like that really just broke my heart reading. And I just can't believe that that exists in the world, you know? Man, it was really heartbreaking and really, really tough to read some of the stuff. I also really loved it because it's not really a book that's demonizing religion. It's much more like Children of the Corn or Boys in the Valley, where it's saying that religion can be a really great, beautiful thing on a spiritual level, but sometimes with organized religion, when you have people that are leading the pack and have their own agenda to push forth, it can be really dangerous. And so there were a lot of cool things I liked about this book, but it really wasn't a book that I would typically read just because of the supernatural stuff. And I have to leave it vague just because the description is vague, so I don't want to give anything away. But let me know if you guys have read it. I'm absolutely going to read more of his books, and like I said, I really love the sentiment behind it. There's some really good quotes in here as well that I enjoyed. The next one that I read was this guy, The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. Oh my gosh, this was one of the best, if not the best thriller book I've ever read. This was so fun. It's about a woman who opens this retreat in her old family mansion that was passed down to her after her grandparents passed away. So she opens it as like a hotel, a resort, a spa, like all this fancy kind of stuff, you know, fancy food and wines and all this stuff. But she really pisses the town off when she does it because she blocks off paths that have always been in the town leading like to the beach or to here because she's claiming that it's her territory. You also have a kid, his perspective, his family owns a farm nearby, and so you kind of get to see the life of a townie versus the life of this woman who just came in and kind of claimed the area. You also get this woman who knew the first woman, sorry, I can't remember her name now. Bella and what's the bitch's name, the main bitch? Francesca. So you have this woman named Bella who knew Francesca before she opened this place, and she comes and she rents a room there to confront her about something or discuss something that happened in their past. Then you have this kind of horror folklore aspect of it, of these birds that are said to have been stalking the woods around the area, and it's like a folklore in town and nobody knows if they're like real or not, but supposedly they come and they kind of deliver karma onto people that have done bad things. So you just have so many different layers in this book. I really liked the creepy horror folklore aspect of it. I really liked how things came back around. It is a really fantastic read, and I've read quite a few Lucy Foley books, and it's really cool to see the first popular book that she published and then to read this and to see how much more intricate her synopsises get and how, yeah, she weaves everything together. It's really impressive. I loved this one. The cover is absolutely beautiful. I love that a lot of books that are coming out this summer have this like bright green to them.
Real quick, one thing I would say about this one is that I would skip the audio version of it if possible, because it does have multiple timelines and on top of that multiple perspectives, which I think might make an audiobook a little bit challenging. So if you read this one, I would suggest picking up the actual book form. I'm just adding this based off of the Goodreads reviews because I was surprised it didn't have a higher rating. And when I saw a lot of people being confused by the audiobook, I was like, oh, that makes total sense. So I just thought I would include it here just so you guys knew.
What a fantastic read. Absolutely adored this book. Highly recommend. It does feel like a thriller, but I feel like it dips its toe in horror a little bit throughout the way. And I thought, yeah, it was great. And yeah, figured out barely anything in that one, which was very surprising because, you know, I feel like thrillers are really obvious and that you can predict a lot. She really surprised me with that. Really, really awesome book. And there were some twists and turns in there, but I feel like it wasn't too crazy, you know? The next one that I read was my cozy mystery number 10. This is Macaron Madness by Addison Moore.
It's called Macaron Massacre.
This one was so funny. So the same thing happens. Our main character, she sees a ghost, knows someone's gonna die, then that person dies, she tries to solve the murder. So it's the same basis. However, there's just some funny stuff that happens in these books. The best thing about this one was during a funeral, the family didn't like the person that died, so instead of putting them in a casket, they just prop them up in a chair. And I was dying of laughter reading this. It's so funny because the writer just does some wild things. Like there's always strip clubs or naked exercise classes or these weird couples retreats, and then you have stuff like this, and it's just, they're funny, they're cute, they're adorable. Like I said, I will never stop reading these. This one was the first one that I knew who the killer was by like page 20. Usually that doesn't happen, but because the story's so cute and fun and you get to know everybody in the town and the love triangle going on, there's just a lot going on, and you just go with Lottie to interview different people and try to get little bits of information until she kind of puts all the clues together with you. So typically I don't figure out who it was. This one I felt like it was pretty obvious, but because of how cute it is and all the other additional stuff added to the story, I definitely wasn't disappointed by it or anything. The next one that I read was To Be Devoured by Sarah Tantlinger. This one was something. Let me tell you, I bought this one because it's on some extreme horror reading lists, and then other people have been like, oh, it's not extreme at all. It's just kind of weird and gross. So yeah, I don't know exactly where it fits, but I really enjoyed this one. It's about a woman. She's had a pretty rocky past, and now she has a relationship with this other woman, but their relationship kind of falters when our main character named Andy acts a little strange. So the other woman named Luna gets a little weirded out and kind of like puts Andy at arm's length. Yeah, I don't know. I really like this book. I thought that there were a lot of really beautiful quotes in here. I am a body learning to consume other bodies. Somewhere in the argument, I began to wonder more about how the dead body would taste. The term "what the fuck Andy" is used a lot throughout the book, and like, yeah, what the fuck Andy. It's weird, it's beautiful, it's fun. Our deaths deserve no other meaning than to be devoured. We are bodies waiting to be swallowed into soil, into the ocean. So there's just a lot of really beautiful quotes. Here's the thing with this one though, like I don't know who to recommend this to. I really don't know, because things just get weird and gross, and it's not really like a traditional extreme horror book. I mean, like I wouldn't consider this extreme horror, but it's not like an extreme horror book where you're just like, oh, you know, it's going to be super bloody or whatever. It's just kind of weird. So I don't know who to recommend this to, but just know if you pick this up, it's going to get weird, it's going to get gross, but I really enjoyed it. The next one that I read was Skin by Audrey Rush, and this one I honestly just picked up my Kindle because I was going to go to the nail salon. So I was like, oh, I'm going to bring my Kindle with me, and then I can just tap and read through, and that seemed like a good idea. So anyways, I didn't know how this ended up on my Kindle. I don't remember purchasing it. I have no idea why I purchased it, nothing. It's just a random book that was on there. So I was like, oh, I'll read this. And it's about a man who's a taxidermy guy. And he gets somebody coming to him late at night with a body. And he knows he shouldn't touch the body, and he knows he shouldn't accept it, and he knows that it's illegal, but he's very intrigued by the dead body's beauty. And so he's just like a creepy misanthrope, you know, doesn't like people, likes being by himself. This one's pretty gross. Yeah, there's some nasty stuff in here. This is definitely more of an extreme book. I think when you click it, she gives a content warning. But yeah, I liked this one. I thought that it was well written, and I thought it was an interesting read. It kept me really entertained. So I finished this one at the nail salon, and I had downloaded this book, House of Incest by, I knew a woman whose name this had the same name and you pronounced it Anais. So I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation for this writer, but Anais Nin. And this was written in the 30s. And I'm just going to read you the Goodreads about it because I truly don't know how to explain this book, and then I'll talk a little bit more about it in a second. It said it was originally published in 1936. House of Incest is her first work of fiction. Based on Nin's dream, the novel is a surrealist look within the narrator's subconscious as she attempts to distance herself from a series of all-consuming and often taboo desires she cannot bear to let go. The incest Nin depicts is a metaphor, a selfish love wherein a woman can appreciate only qualities in a lover that are similar to her own. Through a descriptive exploration of romance and attractions between women, between a sister and her beloved brother, and a Christ-like man, Nin's narrator discovers what she thinks is that a woman's most perfect love is of herself. At first, the self-love seems ideal because it is attainable without fear and risk of heartbreak, but in time, the narrator's chosen isolation and self-possessed anguish give way to a visceral nightmare from which she is unable to awake. This one was so weird because, yeah, you can read it as a metaphor and stuff, but it's also told, the dreamlike sequence at the beginning almost feels like she's explaining being born as well, so you could definitely read it that way. And then there's definitely like direct quotes about like a father and a daughter and things like that. So I think there's definitely multiple ways to interpret and read this one. But the thing is, this is written so cool. Now, it's written very stream of consciousness, and I'm not typically into that. I usually don't like that. I remember reading Song to Myself in college. Who's that by? Walt Whitman, maybe? And I remember being like, oh, that's not for me. And maybe I would feel differently about it now. But this stream of consciousness was so cool. There are just some really awesome quotes in here. And there's other cool metaphors in here, like it's talking about a man and a woman on their wedding day, and it says, when I hear the bells ringing, they ring far too loud, they deafen me. I felt like I would weep blood. My ears hurt so much. I coughed because the din was immense and terrifying. And then it talks about the man, and he was talking about how it didn't seem loud to him at all, and it didn't seem close to him, and blah, blah, blah. And so it's like a metaphor for the fear of getting married, and obviously the woman's having more difficulty than the man is. And so there is definitely a lot to pick apart in this. It's a quick read, but I feel like I would definitely need to read it a few more times to really grasp what was going on. This one, it says, the shadow of death running after each word so that they wither before she has finished uttering them. I was wishing you would die so that no one could take you away from me. It was night and I made a careless, this is my favorite quote. I posted this on Instagram. This might be my favorite quote of all time. It was night and I made a careless movement inside my dream. I turned too brusquely the corner and I bruised myself against my madness. I'm sorry, excuse me? Oh, some really awesome stuff in here. If only we could all escape from this house of incest where we only love ourselves in the other. If only I could save you all from yourself. I mean, there's some interesting stuff in here, right? And that is a really freaking interesting line to sit and analyze. I don't know. This book I thought was so neat. I was really into it and I really enjoyed it. It's weird, but it doesn't really get too into the incest stuff. Like, it's not super descriptive in that department at all, and it really is just an interesting work to kind of read and analyze. Very strange. You know what, let me get my Kindle because I want to read you the first page of it. Okay, so this is how it starts out. It says, the morning I got up to begin this book, I coughed. Something was coming out of my throat. It was strangling me. I broke the thread which held it and yanked it out. I went to bed and said, I have just spat out my heart. When she died, oh, and then it said that there's an instrument called a quena, I could be pronouncing that wrong, made of bones. It owes its origin to the worship of an Indian for his mistress. When she died, he made a flute out of her bones. The quena has more penetrating, more haunting sound than an original flute. Those who write know the process. I thought of it as if I was spitting out my heart. There's some cool stuff in here. I have already purchased another of her books because that one intrigued me so much. So yeah, just some weird stuff in here, I'm not gonna lie. Some normal stuff and then some very strange stuff towards the end. And that was my reading for the month. Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you. So I finished Skin and then I started House of Incest at the nail salon. But I forgot that if you don't hit the pages fast enough that the label comes on. And luckily it's dark and stuff because my cat scratched the screen, and so if I turn the light up too much there's a little scratch and it drives me crazy, so I keep it really low. So hopefully nobody saw it, but she's doing my nails are all wet and I'm like, oh no, this is so awkward. But anyways, yeah, really interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys read this month. Let me know if you guys have read any of these, and yeah, just let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with another horror video. Okay, bye!
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.